Look around you. Most of what you call your personality, your opinions on God, your fears about the future, your judgment of others, is not actually yours. We live in a world of prefabricated thoughts. We inhabit mental structures built by people we have never met. We live in a quiet, comfortable prison of the way things are. 2 centuries ago, the philosopher Immanuel Kant looked at humanity and saw a strange tragedy. He saw a race of beings gifted with the highest form of intelligence in the known universe, yet choosing to remain children. He called this state Unmündigkeit, immaturity. But why? Why is it so easy to follow and so terrifying to lead your own mind? Today, we dive into the blueprint of your autonomy. We are exploring why we outsource our thinking, who the architects of our reality truly are, and how to reclaim the divine spark of reason that was meant to set us free. The cage doors are open. The question is, are you brave enough to step out? Phase 1. The comfort of the cage, the psychology of avoidance. Kant starts with a radical and somewhat stinging observation. Immaturity is not a lack of intelligence, it is a lack of courage. He famously wrote, "It is so comfortable to be immature. If I have a book that has understanding for me, a pastor who has a conscience for me, a doctor who judges my diet for me, I need not trouble myself." But let's look deeper into why this comfort is so seductive. Thinking for yourself is metabolically and emotionally expensive. It requires you to sit in the tension of not knowing. It demands that you take responsibility for the conclusions you reach. If you follow a script provided by someone else, you are never to blame when things go wrong. You can simply say, "I was only doing what I was told," or "This is what everyone believes." In our modern era, this cage has become invisible. We have replaced the 18th century pastor with the 21st century algorithm. We have echo chambers that confirm our biases before we even have a chance to question them. We live in a state of cognitive ease, where the brain takes the path of least resistance, flowing through neural pathways carved by mass media and social pressure. Kant argues that we have become domesticated cattle. We take pride in our well-tended stalls, unaware that the fence around us was built by those who benefit from our silence. To wake up is to realize that this comfort is a trap. It is a slow, silent erosion of the soul. When you let others think for you, you aren't just saving time. You are giving away the very essence of your existence. You are living a second-hand life. Phase 2. The guardians. Kant warned that there would always be those who set themselves up as guardians over the masses. These architects of thought do not use physical chains anymore. They use the far more effective chains of fear and dependency. To keep you in the state of a permanent child, a guardian must do 2 things. First, they must convince you that the world outside the cage is terrifyingly complex. So complex that you couldn't possibly understand it without their guidance. They create a fog of information, making you feel small and incapable. Second, they point out the danger that threatens you if you try to walk alone. Kant described how these guardians first dumb down their cattle and then warn them of the fall that awaits them if they step out. They tell you that without their framework, you will lose your community, your moral compass, or even your identity. In today's landscape, these guardians are the engineers of outrage and the gatekeepers of the narrative. They tell us that if we don't adopt their specific terminology or their specific view of history, we are dangerous or wrong. They use the threat of social cancellation as the modern-day equivalent of excommunication. But here is the secret the guardians hide. The fall they warn you about is actually your initiation into adulthood. Yes, the first steps are shaky. Yes, you might stumble into confusion. But the guardians don't want you to know that the ability to stumble is the proof that you are finally free. They don't fear your mistakes, they fear your independence. Because an independent mind is the only thing they cannot own. Phase 3. The risk of the awakening. There is a profound psychological weight to the first step of enlightenment. When you begin to dismantle the foreign frameworks you've inherited, whether from your family, your education, or your culture, you experience a form of vertigo. Kant understood that most people, after a brief attempt at independent thought, run back to the safety of the collective. Why? Because the outside is lonely. When you stop speaking in the slogans of the crowd notices. The gravity of social disapproval is one of the strongest forces in the human experience. We are biologically wired to belong, and the guardians use this biological drive as a leash. Furthermore, there is the internal struggle. To think for yourself means you must face the shadow of your own ignorance. You must admit that much of what you held as absolute truth was merely borrowed conviction. This is a painful ego death. It is much easier to be a parrot of a profound truth than to be a humble seeker of a simple one. But this struggle is the pedagogy of the divine. Just as a muscle must be torn to grow, the mind must be challenged to expand. The danger Kant speaks of is actually the birth pangs of a mature consciousness. You are trading the certainty of the slave for the uncertainty of the free. It is a high price, but it is the only price that buys you a soul that truly belongs to you. To walk alone is the only way to eventually walk with God as a partner rather than a puppet. Phase 4. The call to the logos. For Kant, the use of reason was not just a secular skill, it was a moral imperative. He believed that the capacity for autonomous thought is the defining characteristic of being human. In the philosophical tradition of the logoi, the divine blueprints of reality, reason is the bridge between our finite experience and the infinite truth. When you refuse to think, you are essentially burying the greatest talent you were given. You are treating the divine architecture of your mind as if it were a storage unit for other people's luggage. Sapere aude, dare to know. Have the courage to use your own understanding. This command is a spiritual awakening. It implies that truth is not a finished product that a guardian hands to you in a box. Truth is an encounter. It is something you participate in through the honest, rigorous use of your own mind. By thinking clearly, you are honoring the architect of the universe. You are fulfilling your role as a co-creator of meaning. God, or the divine, did not create you to be a hollow vessel for tradition. He gave you a mind that can reflect, analyze, and transcend its own biological programming. When you engage in critical thinking, you are not rebelling against the divine. You are utilizing the very mechanism the divine placed within you to recognize what is good, what is true, and what is real. Autonomous thought is the highest form of worship because it requires the full engagement of the self. Phase 5. The awakening in the 21st century. Enlightenment is not a one-time event. It is a daily practice of mental hygiene. It is the constant effort to distinguish between the noise and the signal. How do we reclaim our sovereignty today? First, identify the Vormunder, your personal guardians. Look at your deepest convictions and ask, where did this thought come from? Did I arrive at this through reflection, or was it planted in me by fear or the desire for social acceptance? If you cannot argue the opposite side of your own opinion, you do not own that opinion. It owns you. Second, embrace what Kant called the public use of reason. Do not just think in a vacuum. Test your thoughts. Speak them. Engage with those who disagree. True enlightenment happens in the friction between different minds. It is in the dialogue that the foreign frameworks are stripped away, leaving only what is resilient and true. Third, trust the logos within. Your brain is a masterpiece of neuroplasticity, capable of rewiring itself until the day you die. Your heart is an antenna for truth. You are biologically and spiritually designed for growth. Do not let the world decorate the interior of your mind with its temporary fashions. Be the architect. Tear down the walls that were built without your consent. Build your own temple of understanding. The path is steep, and the guardians will call after you, warning of the fall. But as you walk, you will realize that the ground is solid. You will realize that the light you were seeking out there was actually coming from the lamp you finally dared to light within yourself. Dare to know. Dare to be free. Thank you for seeking clarity with us here at Luminex Mind. Sapere aude. The journey has just begun.